Welcome to Friday Night Live with Stampscapes. My name is Kevin. I'll be your host. Okay, so we're going to do a composition here, or another version of a composition that I've been tinkering around with and experimenting with using different color schemes and media surface combinations. All right, I hadn't used my large art foamy versions of these tree trunks in a little while, so this has been fun to kind of do this little exercise with in doing the same composition but using coming up with different versions for it. And that's one thing that natural settings are perfectly suited for because of just the times of day, different times of nature, etc. You can give different looks to the exact same composition, and it just has a completely different spirit to it. All right, I'm holding this down for a little bit because I think I have a lot of dried ink on and different types of ink on this stamp, and I want to get a lot of that ink to transfer that's on the foam stamp here. All right, so this one is just this one's going to be in a glossy cardstock, and I'm using dye-based inks because that tends to result in the brightest and deepest saturations of just about any type of crafting medium that we can use. And just dye-based inks are just kind of designed for that purpose, in that they can be layered over one another for a really deep saturated look here. Okay, I'm kind of tweaking the compositions a little bit between from one composition to the next, or one version to the next. Hello, Debbie, Mark, and Linda. How are you? Hope you all had a really nice week. One final version of this piece. I don't know. At least for now. I don't think I'll go back to it. But what is that? 5 versions of that? That's quite a bit for me to do. Especially for the size right here. If I didn't mention it, 10 by 7. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't feel like it's such a gigantic, I mean, it's practically a full page scene, but I don't know, with these art foamies, they're so big. I guess just from the compositional aspect of it, it doesn't feel like it really takes a long time to just do the actual layout, which is nice. When working this size. So I was going to mention too, if someone wants to do this composition, but they want to do it with the standard sizes of stamps, just make it more of like a slimline card. Use about maybe 2.5 to 3 inches off the top, like that, and make it more of an elongated piece, and that these trees will be the perfect size for that. That's the tree trunk trio, but the tree trunk is some. Oh, okay, here we go. Like that one right there. So if you go about, like down here, so with the paper, these trunks like this will be a perfect size for it, which I've done a lot. I've done like half page lengthwise. And if you do that, I would suggest, instead of 11 inches, cut it down to 10 inches, just so that if you want to mat your final result, you'll have, you can dip into your 11-inch, 8.5 by 11-inch paper to mat it on. That was one of the mistakes I've done a lot when doing full page scenes. I was doing 8.5 by 11, but I didn't have anything to mat it on because I didn't have a bunch of like scrapbooking papers at like 14 by 14 or something like that. Oh, Cynthia, how are you? All right, so stamping it out. I think my the one from yesterday. No, the one from yesterday stamped pretty dark right there. On one of these, my I didn't hold down long enough on. I don't remember which one it is. Maybe it was on the semi-gloss right here. On the semi-gloss, though, you can just kind of fill in there a little bit more. And this one right here on the left-hand side, that one didn't stamp out too dark. But interestingly enough, I'm going to have the light coming from this way onto that tree. So I guess it's kind of a head start in terms of lighting or whatever, light direction. All right, we have that. And then, okay, we're going to save all of the foreground detail for the last steps. Okay, I don't want to stamp out my foreground in here with some reeds and these overhanging leaves up here, and then tone across it, and it gets all kind of blurred out. Just from the wet ink. Okay, so let's see. Do I want to go with the day cabin or the night one? I have 2 days and 2 nights here on my previous versions I'm taking a look at. Let's do the night one. This scene could potentially get pretty dark, I think. I mean, we'll see, but that's what I suspect. Let me see, that's the wrong side right there. If you don't know, these cabins come with these sets come with a kind of a left-facing and a right-facing version. If I'm stamping my cabin on the right half of the page, generally, I'm having it face inward. I mean, you can have 2 cabins on it, but I would have them both facing inward like that as opposed to outward. I guess you could do it out. Oh, wait a minute. I grabbed my day. It also comes in day and night. Okay. All right. The night ones just have kind of open windows to give the imagery that interior illuminated look to them. All right. I think I finally figured it out. Okay, so I've closed things in a little bit more with these trees, like this. And this one right here, I stamped all the way down to the bottom of the page on all of the different compositions, but I want to create a little bit more of a shadow base on 2 of the trunks on this one instead of 1, like this one's. I had the lighting coming from this way most of the time. But those shadows are really fun to do, so I thought, okay, so just to tweak things, I'm going to raise this one up right here just so I can create an extra shadow in here. I want some dramatic lighting in this one, so shadows are the things that generally define that, or one of those things that you can use to define lighting in your scenes. So you can create different opportunities for it by stamping objects that can cast a shadow in your scenes. All right, now I should have stamped this out, I don't know, whatever, a couple hours ahead of time and just let it dry, but I got doing some other things, and I thought, okay, well, let's just do the composition here. But I might have to heat seal this. I'll see how it's going. It's kind of dry in here, I think, and hot. So I don't know if it'll dry on its own. It might not dry completely, though, I don't think. Okay, so masking off my trunks right here. I'm gonna not mask it off too much. You can see a lot of those trunks showing. And, if you get a lot of the image stamping into those trunks, it's not really going to be a big deal. But I'd rather have that than to have a big gap of like white space in between the objects. I'd rather have overlapping. If there is a gap, we can always fill it in with color and everything like that, but this will just kind of expedite the entire imagery blending process right here. Did I say hello to everyone here? Yeah, so anyways, hope everyone had a nice week. I've seen some of you in the midweek streams as well. I've been setting up my computer, trying to figure out. Oh my God, it's been a crazy time over this last month, working with new computers, a new old one because I want my old software to work, and it's just been one thing after another with those. I think by design, by the different entities, so that you always have to keep updating your stuff. But there's usually been easy workarounds with that. But I don't know. I think they're getting better at what do they call it? Something engineered, something obsolescence or something like that. Which drives me a little bit nuts because I bought all this software that was very expensive, back in the day, like the Adobe suite of, Photoshop and Illustrator and all that type of thing. All right, I didn't get it right there. So that's where I was mentioning that under masking right there. But I don't know. That's fine. Okay, so we have that, and I'm going to tweak some things a little bit more in here. Let's set the foundation using the sedge filler here, though. Okay, I'm going to wipe off the top and the sides because my black pad is a little bit juicy. From re-inking it before one of the other live streams where I knew I was going to be using a lot of ink. I'm kind of doing it right around on the entire top and left, right. You don't need to do it on the bottom because the bottom is open right down there, where the edges right here can get a little bit kind of thicker looking, which it really isn't a big deal because everything gets blended together anyway. But the more it looks blended in, kind of inherently with your composition, kind of the less kind of, blending that you have to do with your colors to come. But like I said, by the time you move through everything, it's not really going to matter. It just kind of looks better as you're working on it if it just kind of inherently looks a little bit more graceful. Yeah. You don't have to look at it, you know what I mean? Which I do all the time because, sometimes I don't take the time to do it. But, by the time I'm doing those finishing touches on there, it's not really going to matter. But again, so it's just for myself, I didn't have to look at kind of a really rough kind of, looking application of something, during the process. All right, so that's basically it. I'm going to do a little bit of a tweak here, though, because I am considering having some, I don't know, whatever, a little bit more dramatic sky and lighting situation on this one, just to make it, look different from the previous versions, Yeah, this would be the fifth version of this composition here. So if we're going to be doing that, we don't want them to be, just kind of a little bit different from one another. It's you want them to have a really distinctive type of twist to them. Ideally, I guess. Yeah, yeah. This one's been fun, Sam Hawkins. It's I hadn't used the trunks, I don't know, in a little while. A few months feels like a really long time, but the scale of them, and it really changes the spirit, or I don't know, whatever. It tweaks the spirit of the pieces from their standard sizes. I guess which would make sense. So like something like that, which is what I was always doing in the past, to like something like this. So this is 9 inches, and this was like 4 1/4. So I've used this a gazillion times, but to use this version of it, it's like twice as tall. But when you're doing it on the usual sizes of paper, it can really I don't know, I guess it's adding grandeur to it. It's certainly extending depth, of course, just from the scale of it. Okay, so this scene is going to be roughly this color scheme right here. And I'm going to stamp this cloud in here. It's the cloud cumulus. Okay, so I have to decide what color do I want to stamp this in. Now, I could stamp it in black. I don't really want to do that, though, because when you stamp your sky imagery in black, it has a little bit more of a... It makes it easier to color them because you retain the form a lot easier, because you can use colors on them. And, if this is stamped in black, it's going to stand out against any color that's lighter than it. But it doesn't have as much of a kind of a, I don't know, kind of a graceful kind of air to it when doing it in black. It's a little bit more, potentially like ominous, if you're going to do something like really stormy or something like that. Or, certainly if we're doing like Halloween scenes or something like that, where you want more kind of an ominous look in the sky, that would be perfect for that. But this one I really want to be kind of, whimsical and inviting. So, kind of extreme and ominous. Doesn't really fit that spirit, as you might imagine. Okay, so this pad right here, I don't use these pads very often, like my darker like colors like that. It's usually, I might use green, but it's not that value of it in the extreme. It's usually, if I'm doing a green color scheme, it's usually the darker greens are around on the perimeter. So let's stamp that off a little bit, or a lot. The scene is going to be kind of, monochromatic for the most part in here. I do have these browns in here, though, for my tree trunks, but there's going to be a lot of the green incorporated in there. And I'm saying this because I could probably just stamp right over my trees with this green. Now, I've stamped it off once, and I've wiped off the sides a little bit where it's going to overlap the trees. You could take the time to mouse them off if you want to. I don't know, maybe I should, but I'm just going to stamp right in there because they're going to be green anyway. I might not want that extreme dark of green, though. Okay. So like that. Yeah, let's see, some of my clouds are going right into the tree. But again, it's not really going to be any big deal. Okay, now let's add... What I'm doing is I'm kind of creating a little spot that's going to be in the clouds, where the light is kind of like streaming out this way. They call them crepuscular rays. Let me go for a second impression, in fact. Right here. I think I can get a second impression, but it'll just be lighter. Like right there. I don't know, that barely shows. And then let's go for probably 2 more impressions. I just want a little bit of an opening in there. I don't want a big opening for that space right there. Okay, for that opening in the clouds where the light is coming out of it. Okay, maybe I will mask this one off because I'm going to be using, like, I don't know, just a small portion of this cloud. Now I can have these beams coming from, you know, behind the tree trunk. It doesn't have to be physically right within the scene, but I think it might be more effective to have it in there like that. And let's see. Let's close it up one extra little step. Like about like that. Okay, so that's where my beams will be coming out of there. Now I have to address this area over here. And that looks really rough in there. We'll clean that up later. I don't know, I probably should have wiped off some of the, or just re-inked and wiped it off again, but again, not really any big deal. Okay, so I'm wiping off the perimeter. We'll go for 1 stamp off. And then let's go for clouds kind of facing that direction because that's the direction of light and the light is coming from this direction on this cloud. You have this cloud in unmatted form. Just on the back of this rubber, put it like an arrow facing so you know which way to face the light with it. Okay? All right, let's not do a second impression. Let's go for... Okay, and you could put it down here, reflecting in this water area too. Let's not complicate it. We got a lot of texture already in this whole composition, so... All right, I'm going to clean this cloud up because I just know that, you know, in some kind of future video, I'm going to be trying to stamp out this cloud in a light blue or something like that, but whatever. You know, a couple weeks earlier, I did this in green that I'm going to stamp out the cloud expecting blue, and it's going to be like green. And it's a really dark green too, so let's get that ink off of there. Like that. All right, these are kind of lined up from light to dark, like that. We have a really big composition right here too, so I don't think I have a really light green re-inker. There used to be this color in the Marvy line called Pale Orange, and I probably have a re-inker for it, but I don't use it because my pad kind of completely wore out. So I'm just going to grab something here. Like a blue would be good, or another one that I've been using lately just to get rid of some inks is the Peach Bellini, and that'll be a good foundation for this. Okay, so let me see right here. Okay, good thing about the heat wave that we're in, shockingly, my inks are reasonably dry here. Like even in these art foamy areas here, there's a little bit of an ink coming up from my impressions, but it's not too bad. So I don't think I need to. I don't think I need to heat set this let's just go right into it. I'll try it over here, and if I'm getting too much ink lifting, then maybe let's spray seal it. I mean, heat set it. All right, so a good dollop of this warm, light tone here. Let me just let that set into the, soak into the paper towel a little bit first. If you're doing large scenes like this on the semi-gloss or glossy cardstock, matte paper too, I guess. If you're going for layered tones, I'd really highly recommend this step right here, because it's just going to make things go so much faster, at least in terms of your base layer colors, okay? And a base layer color is just kind of establishing kind of a foundation of color, but also kind of your lighting in your scenes. And it's if it's a really light value of whatever color you're using, so this is like a light brown, beige, it's not really making a big commitment to that color, so you know, if you apply it, and if you apply too much or more than you thought you were going to apply, it's still like a 5% value of some colors, so it's not really going to be any big deal. You can just change up still, you know, your color scheme, your lighting scheme, etc. And I mean, you know, I have half of this done already, and I barely, you know, had to do anything. So, you know, in terms of my application, I'm not re-inking constantly, and I'm getting really good coverage here. I mean, it might look really light. It's because it's a really light color. It's not because the ink is dry. I'm applying a pretty good dollop of ink on here, a slathering of it. Okay. All right, so my lighting is coming from over here, and it's going to be coming across here. So let's put some of this into my clouds as well. But if some of the clouds are going to be reflecting some light or white light, then don't tone them out. Same thing on these trees right here. If you want to add in some shadow work into them. Now, if you want to retain some of the lightest of light in there, then don't tone it out. But we do have a lot of colors to come, so you do want to get a pretty good application of your base coat layers, okay? So just have a little bit of your lighting retained, okay? You don't have to leave like big areas of white, okay? Okay, so I'm doing a little thing right here to get the angle of the shadow at the base of this. So my light is going to be coming from here. That's your light source. And I kind of aim for the middle of it right up there. I'm just using this as like a straight edge. But see this right here? That's the angle of your shadow right here. Now see right here, there's just a kind of like, there's like a sliver of shadow here. So here's my top of that right here, and there's the base of this tree trunk right here. So you can kind of fill in right there. I mean, I can eyeball it, but I just want to show you here. And it doesn't have to be like perfect like that. You don't want like these straight edges, but that's just kind of a reference. Yeah, it's like the lighting that's coming through there. And then you go like this, and see, this is the angle right here at the base of this trunk right here. Now, this isn't like flat concrete right here, but so I will do some tweaks in here. I'll kind of make it a little bit more varied, you know, with these round, you know, whatever tufts of grass, but you can see how that kind of creates your lighting scheme. So here's these angles right here. They're not parallel to each other, but they're kind of angled out based on the location of that source right there. Okay, so see, you can see this again. Here's the benefit of the your base coat layer, just doing something really light. And this applies not just for dye-based inks and white cardstock. You can lay down a base layer of colored pencils or pastels or something like that. It's going to be a little bit of different look and kind of sensibility based on that media, but it's the same idea. Okay, so areas in the grass that aren't being illuminated by that light. Okay, they're not necessarily just going to be white, so I want to get some of this color in there. Okay. But that's basically it on the first color, and you know, I only had to ink this up one time, and it's kind of nice when you're doing inking. You know, you're getting a pretty full coverage of a certain color of ink over your whole scene. And again, this is like practically a full page scene right there, but you never had to re-ink this, you know, sponge or whatever applicator you're using. Now, if I wanted to apply more to really, you know, get a little bit of a deeper saturation, this is kind of dry now. Yeah, they could, huh, Mark? That's what I was always wondering, you know, why are cars, you know, they make certain models of cars really super dependable, and then the next year they just, I don't know, whatever, they blow it, you know. I think about that, like stuff like that all the time. But it's like that, whatever, engineered obsolescence. But they screw it up sometimes. So things are, you know, those things that are supposed to fail within, you know, right after the warranty. That's what they're kind of aiming for, I think, a lot of times, is right after the warranty is up. You know, those things fail, and that system there kind of fails. So, you know, they got a lot of stuff kind of breaking down within the first couple years. Because that engineering isn't, you know, they don't have that down well enough. Or it's like it kind of drives you nuts when you have some version of something that lasts, you know, does really, really well. So they get you as a customer and get you kind of loyal, but then, you know, their latter versions of things are just starting to, you know, they don't last as long anymore. I don't know, whatever, they already got the market share down of a, you know, certain audience or demographic, and it's like, okay, so we're not getting new people involved, so we got to, you know, make more off of our existing customers, and that's by having kind of you know, product failure. Unlike Stampscapes, you know. Built to last more than one lifetime. Now, you know, there's definitely a place for them, but that's one of those things I think about, or I've thought about a lot, you know, in the stamping industry. It's most stamps are clear stamps these days. And, you know, for positioning and things like that, they're really fantastic for that. And I think, I don't know, without clear stamps, I don't know. I don't know if there's as many people in stamping now or whatnot, but those stamps, I'm not quite sure, you know, just how long they'll last in terms of, you know, a lot of times it's how they kind of accept the ink, you know, because they start to harden up after a little bit of time. But I have thought about them before. Not in terms of kind of a replacement, but another option, because a lot of people just, a lot of new people just won't stamp with anything but clear stamps. So it's like, I don't know. Definitely a consideration. Just as long as stamps stamp out really well in that form. But yeah, I'm not sure about longevity. Okay, so there we go like that. There's your brown in there. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else I want that kind of brownish tinge on, which is usually a lot of my areas. Okay, I don't want that. This is just kind of a foundation for these colors right here, but it's largely going to be more kind of this emerald green-ish colored scheme, like a greenish, brilliant, whatever, a more whimsical twilight type of scenario here. So everything's going to get kind of toned over with green tones, okay? But I just wanted to have that variation within the trunks. And you know what I mean? Just so everything's not just exactly the same. And then, I didn't want it to look like this scene, except instead of blues, it's just, it's just green. So we want to make these pretty distinct from one another. Okay, so one of the lightest tones that I have in my green tones, and I really like the version of, is this Distress ink. I like a lot of the Distress ink colors, especially the early ones, because they were made to look aged, so they're a good complement in terms of old, aged, and dull, okay? Which is, they're supposed to be dull, right? They're not supposed to be like super bright. They do make them bright now, but they're supposed to look all weathered and stuff like that. So that's like the opposite of Marv inks, which are like, they try to make them as bright as possible. So I do like bright, but I also like having a range of tones. Okay, so you can see that green on there. It's just a little bit different from this, but you can see the warmth of it now in layering that on there. So sometimes your colors are really quite subtle and you don't see like a big change of darkness, but you can see a change of richness like that. See that right there? So potentially, as you're layering your transparent colors over one another, and I say potentially because potentially it can, your color scheme, your lighting scheme, your color depth can be that much richer as a result. Now I make mine muddy all the time because I go overboard. So a lot of times I make it kind of muddy and it's overworked and everything like that, but I just bring it back. I just reintroduce sharpness and crispness back into it with the white pigment ink and paint or gel pens, that I used to use in the past, the gel pens or white paint pen, stuff like that. Okay, so let's go and define a little bit more of our light and shade like that. You can see my right sides of my trees here are a little bit darker now, but we'll leave the left side of them illuminated that are facing that left side light. And these clouds right here, let's do some bottom lighting right here. So they're being top lit right around our light like that. And the clouds above will be bottom lit. So you put the tone at the top underneath the light. You put the tone at the bottom so that it looks like the light is coming from underneath that cloud and above that cloud. And this one right here, it's to the right side of that really light image of the cloud right here. We have this rock island right there, and I'll bottom light it or shade it for top lighting right there. And I want a little bit of variation right in here in my water to be reflecting some of that light like that. In this rooftop right here, let's vary the roof a little bit where some of it's darker and some of it's lighter like that. And on these clouds, here's one cloud impression right here, and here's the other one. It gets darker at the base of the cloud like this. It goes light, dark, light like that, okay? But see this area right in here is the area that we're adding some tone like this, okay? And then blend that in a little bit more. And then right over here, let's do this like that. So it's kind of that light is kind of reflecting off of these two areas of the clouds like that. Let's get a little bit of tone right underneath that cloud. About like that. So we can kind of see our lighting a little bit more distinctly, our lighting design scheme, whatever, at this point in time. It's kind of coming into focus. It doesn't always come into focus like with our first base layer color, you know. That's the lightest one, but it kind of establishes kind of the general areas, but you just kind of, you know, you just keep fine-tuning it a little bit. Now, as you start moving through your medium tones, your darker tones, try to retain some of these variations in here. Don't go all the way up to here with, like, say this, you know, this darkest of green or something like that. You know, have it more in the shadow areas like this. Let's see. Hello, Patty. Hello, Sharita. Do you consider complementary colors when you choose them? Okay, so I think you mean, I'm guessing, Mark, you mean by harmonizing colors when it comes to my color schemes. I'm generally picking out swatches and I'm breaking it into their individual colors like that. Complementary colors, when it comes to art, means means opposite colors on the color wheel. So I'm assuming that's what you mean. But yeah, I do get colors that that blend into one another like that. And then sometimes what you do is you do use complementary colors. So I'm choosing what they call analogous colors. So if you break down a color wheel, let me see something. Okay, so these are analogous colors right here, okay? Or this is like a little swatch. So if you notice, this is just what I've done right here. Okay. And then, you know, if I was moving in this other direction right here, going for sunset colors, I would grab like these color pads right here. You know, you can throw like a pink in there or something like that, because a pink is just a lighter version of red here. And you don't see browns on here, but browns tend to harmonize with this whole area in here. Even like the lightest of brown can harmonize with as a base coat to all of these colors here, as long as it's light enough right here. But you can see right here, so like a complementary color for this one right here would be yellow orange right here, but I'm mostly working with analogous right here, okay? And if it's something like this, you can break down each one of these too individually, from like a light green to a darker green, or whatever, you know, whatever pure color that is right there. So that's all I'm doing. That's, you know, you can mix and match. So on something like this one right here kind of fit in, you know, it's probably lighter. This one looks darker right here than this one, but I just know that from distressings and mementos, they're lighter than what they look like in their indexing, you know, their color reference, you know, packaging on there. That's what I did in my first classes, you know, they came to learn Stampscapes, but I was working with glossy cardstock and we were adding the colors. So my really easy color whatever lighting design too, for people were just to, whatever color a certain area is going to be, just grab all the colors out of the pads that I brought for them to use, and they just line them up going from light to dark. So it's kind of like a value, you know, kind of exercise. You're just lining whatever you have going from light to dark. And that also made it visual, because a lot of people were thinking, well, wait a minute, I want to use some, you know, that emerald green that, you know, that you saw, but they can see clearly that, you know, okay, well, there's emerald greens, there's yellows in it, and there's greens in it. So if they see that, they're thinking, and if they try to blend that into that, they can, but it's a heck of a lot easier to blend in. You know, you take something like this and that. Is that an easy blend? Yeah, I mean, it can be, but if you're just doing this, you know, for the first time, it's just easier to transition it. Now you can see that transition right there is a lot more graceful. And like I said, it's not a waste of time to throw in those extra colors or steps, because it just, when you layer them down like this, one on top of one another, the base coat underneath there is still showing through. So you're still benefiting from that first layer, even though you can't see it anymore. You know, it's not on the top surface of it, but it is contributing to that overall color glow like that. And that's another thing with you know, like color theory. If you put analogous colors next to each other, it's next to each other, but it's also if you layer them over one another, and if they're transparent, it results in a color glow in terms of the illusion. So we're talking about complementary colors, colors opposite one another on the color wheel. So if it was like that blue-green or something like that, and that orange, if you put like two pieces of paper next to each other with those complementary colors, that point at which they meet like that, if you look at it, that area in there will kind of vibrate. It's one of those illusions like that. But with analogous colors, it creates a color glow. And that's what I want from this. I want this to look like it's kind of glowing in terms of looking at this two-dimensional piece that doesn't inherently have any lighting in it, right? So it's just reflected light, but I want it to look like that light is coming from within the scene, you know, the illusion of that. So I'm just making use of that that analogous color concept right there. And again, you know, if you guys want to just do it, what you do is you just line up your like transparent colors. You can do it with alcohol inks or something like that. And a lot of times people have their pads in like a organizer and stuff like that, but I'd really recommend, or, you know, their pens are all kind of nicely organized and tucked away, but I recommend you grab the colors that you're going to be using and you line them up physically like this right in front of you, so you can see the transition of colors like that, okay? And you just start off with the lightest ones and you work into your darker ones like that. So you don't have to have anything kind of theoretical in terms of will this color blend in with this one right here, because you can see it, right? You know, you can make it visual instead of you know, kind of mental in terms of the concept of it. You know, we're working with a visual medium, so you make the you just line them up right in front of you. Okay, so a lot of times in this color scheme, I don't use yellow, but let's make it really, let's see if we can make it really bright, okay? Okay, so see that right there? I don't know. Let's take a look at this right here and see. We'll do a little comparison, left side, right side right here, okay? So it's on this tree and right down here in these grasses right here, but can you see the difference between, you know, having that yellow in there? I mean, it's not like, oh my God, that's a huge difference. It's not, but you can see this kind of like glowing a little bit more than over here. So over here, it looked like it was glowing pretty good to me. But then when you add in something, and this is what you call saturation right here, it's brightness, okay? On the saturation scale, we're working with value, but we're also working with saturation, which is the relative brightness of a scene. Value is the relative darkness, lightness, but saturation is the relative bright and dull, okay, which is different than, light and dark. So like pastels would be something that are dull in brightness, you know what I mean? They're supposed to be, light and soft. But this is where, you can add in that brightness into there. So I know I use that, weathered distress ink here. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, Kevin, you just said you wanted, kind of aged and dull or something like that. Oh, I wanted it in terms of like a step in here. And plus it gives it that little bit of a aged look when we have it in here. This is the brown, but I used a lot of this in here too. So it's, it's all kind of contributing to the range in here. Okay. Now remember, I'm not going for blue skies and, whatever, gray rocks or something like this. It's largely going to be kind of a monochromatic color scheme in here. Okay, now I'm going to be using a lot of whites in here too with my light beams, so I have to retain some white in here. So don't, I'm not going to tone things out to where there is no white remaining in here. We need a reference point for that white light to be running through the scheme right here. So anyways, I think that yellow worked pretty good. Like I said, a lot of times I don't use that yellow in there. Okay, now this one right here, this celery, this one's not really that bright, and I don't think it's going to do very much in here. Yeah, it looks just like that peeled paint distress, I think. So let's not do too much of that. These darker colors go a lot faster too. The base coat colors, you might think, oh my God, that's, it's going to take forever if we have to do that same, level of coverage with every color. We don't. When we start moving, especially into these like colors right here, the mid-tone, well, that's darker tone, but like the mid-tones and up, you don't add as much in there because you already have everything kind of established and you're just using the darker tones for like the deepest of shadows. And plus this is getting really saturated right here. It's not wet to the touch or anything like that, but I'm sure it's getting a little bit moist on the surface. Like see right here, this is a really bright green right here, but I can't see anything on here because it's just not transferring as much. So you might dab around like that to build it up a little bit more. Okay, but again, I won't have to do too much with this one. Before I started this one too, every time I restart one of these, I'm thinking I should probably do it in, do my impressions in StazOn. Just to make it dry a lot faster. But again, I wanted to use, these art foamies ones, and I don't want to use the StazOn ink on those art foamies. I don't want that type of solvent ink getting into the pores of that that sponge. On rubber stamps, it'll just, all the ink stays on the surface, and you can just easily, wash it off. But I just think it might harden the foam. Of absorbent, foam stamp. Okay. All right. So that is green. I'm adding more of this green. It wasn't like adding too much, but I just know from kind of experience that this green right here is a really good one in terms of really kind of adding a bright, whatever element or area into a scene. If you're, picking up some Marvy inks, you can still get the re-inkers for a lot of the different colors. except for the most popular ones like black, and most of the blues are sold out by this point in time. But this number 11 light green would be a really beneficial one, because even if you have like 20 other greens from other companies, okay, and you want to go really bright like this, with the type of saturation, you don't have to go through all Marvy inks, okay? But if you add in like that yellow right there, yellow might be sold out too because it's a real basic color, but this number 11 green would be a really good one to pick up, because you can add that too, just in terms of one layer with whatever, it could be 5 other greens from any other company, Ranger Industries, Stampin' Up, anything like that. Just throw one of the, one layer of this into the mix and it'll brighten up all of them. Hello, Jeannie. I don't know if I said that. Oh, Jeannie's stamping, but listening. Hello, Bill. How are you? Just finished a 5x8 fun fold card. That's awesome. I can't see the forest for the trees. Bill, you know all the sayings. My wonky eye seems like it might be improving. Fingers crossed. That sounds good. It's 86 there. Might have to break out the winter clothes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Bundle up there. Bonnie, don't catch cold. Okay, so see this right here? I'm adding this in here, and I think it's applying more because as I sit here, this is kind of drying up on me a little bit more. Not completely dried or anything. It's not dried, but it's just, drying up a little bit more as I do this. I'm kind of coming over here a little bit, probably too much. I should probably like end right there from that light source like that. It's like that. But see, I mean, you don't have to, I'm not like holding up a ruler or something like this and keeping that angle, for that shadow being cast right here. But, see, here's the general direction of that shadow being cast. This is going to be our light source, by the way, if you guys have just joined in right here. And we're going to have these light beams kind of coming through here, I think. I say I think because, I don't know, I want to see what this looks like, too. Before I get to that step, and we'll see how this looks. I should probably add them in because they add in a really very distinctive look to a piece. Okay, this is jungle green. Let's see here. I'll add that to my darker area right there. If it doesn't show up in the darker area, then just omit it from the process. We already have enough color in here. There isn't a set amount either, but I would say just in general, having about 3 different versions at minimum creates that really nice, deep saturated glow to a piece. And again, it doesn't have to be like, oh my god, I don't have like 5 greens or something like that. Again, you layer those other tones in there that will harmonize with it, like browns or something like that if you want to. Okay, so this is going pretty dark right here. I've moved now into that, that whatever 75-80% type of color, in terms of value like that. So see this right here. So I'm kind of keeping it on the darker side of the tree, like that, which is now kind of a little bit more round, like that. See that transitioning through that, having that little bit of brown up there is kind of cool. And down there in the grasses too, if it's just only green, I don't know, I don't like it as much as having kind of a more earthy look, and that's having those foundation kind of brown tones underneath there, like that. It just solves a lot of kind of whatever issues, color issues. And again, we're not going for realism, but it just it's almost too kind of hot of a color, without kind of that mellowing brown tone ish, brownish tones underneath there. And I didn't use the darkest of brown either. I'll work that one in there too. So I used like this one right here. Did I use that one yet, or did I just use the walnut? Now I'm thinking, okay, maybe I didn't use the Marvies in there, the Marvie browns. Okay, this tree right here is getting its light from right here, so let's darken this side of it right here. This is like a Christmas green, by the way. It's kind of like a neutral one, but just as long as it's kind of dark, it doesn't have to be this specific green either, okay? It's a dark green. There's a memento that's kind of the equivalent. There's a memento kind of equivalent in all these colors. But I'm sure like every line of inks out there is going to have, kind of your basic green here. Most of them do. Most of them have like a nice range of values in all of the different hues too. Blues, browns, violet, red. One thing they don't have in inks, though, a lot of times, because it wouldn't sell, because people aren't attracted to it. But I wish places had. I mean, there's usually like one or two grays, okay, at most. But it's usually just a gray. But I wish there was kind of like a warm gray and a cool gray and a neutral gray. Maybe like 5 grays or something like that. Warm, cool, neutral, all in maybe like a 30% or something like that. And then maybe just another neutral, darker one, like a 70% gray. Maybe 4 tones would be fine. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of people aren't using that type of range of something like that. People want color, but I would use it as a base for some colors. Okay, so you see that right there? Our shadows are really getting a lot more developed now with the use of this dark of a tone like that. I'm really pleased right here that I didn't get a lot of smearing, especially with those first couple colors. So there's something, like I said, something to be said about kind of living in heat. I'm starting to glisten. I feel like I'm sweating here, sitting underneath these lights right here. All right, so there we go, like that. And let's move to this right here, bottle green. Watch for your ink kind of viscosity. This bottle green is just, I don't know, it's like thinner ink, but it's really dark and rich too. But see that right there? That really applies. So what this does is it penetrates the ink that's already layered on here, even if it's still kind of wet. That really applies fast. Okay, so again, I want to have a nice kind of transitioning value range in this trunk right here. So what you do is if you have kind of a ink with a thinner viscosity that's really applying very fast on here, you can see it right there. It's very distinct. Just kind of transition it across here a little bit slower. So, and what you do is you just stay on this darker area for longer like this, or tap it around, whatever technique you're using, okay? Before you move into your lighter areas, because this is going to darken it up really fast. So you kind of want to be aware of, what you're applying is looking like underneath your applicator, okay? So what I'm saying that because we get into kind of a rhythm with all the different tones or colors that you've worked through. And for the most part, you can apply it at the kind of the same rate, but sometimes you run into a color that, again, it's just the chemistry of it is just thinner. So what you do is you just kind of stay in the shadows a little bit longer and take a look too. Always make it kind of visual and see, how much is applying. Maybe you don't re-ink this color as often either as the colors that you've just been working through. Okay, kind of giving the tree at the base a little bit of a more solid foundation right there, but you can see this, area right in here. And one of the things about shadow work is if you make that, whatever, 5% dark or 10% darker, then anything around it will look that percentage lighter. So this is the darkest of area. That white there by contrast will seem that equivalent amount lighter. So again, we're just kind of we're playing contrast against one another, or contrasts, in order to create that illusion of light in there. Now, I can't get into those trees with this right here, but that's where the alcohol pens or, something like that will come in handy. Let's go a little bit darker up here, but I'll do it with a very dry version of this green. It's still pretty dark. Here, let's see it. I'm using kind of a lighter touch too, right here. And I oftentimes darken out something that I think, oh, I went a little bit too far right there. But most of the times I don't even think about it. It doesn't even occur to me, like maybe consciously, like, oh, okay, I took that too far, just because I know that, I don't know if I even give it like a second thought, because I just know that when I go to my white pigment ink and my colored paint pens and stuff like that, that's going to refine all that anyway. My grassy areas oftentimes get kind of like muddled and, they're rich in terms of tones, but I lose my textures and things like that. But again, those are all things that are kind of brought back later on anyway. Let me see. Oh, you meant the complementary opposites there. Purple sky and yellow trees. Yeah, I don't usually do that too often because in areas that I do that overlap, it gets that kind of muddled color. So I generally try to stick to analogous, but that's sometimes that's an issue because there are some types of things that in life, we see, like this tree, beautiful orange, autumn foliage against like a blue sky, but it's, they're contacting each other like that because you have the tree in front of it. But how do you do that though with transparent media is the problem. So in some ways, one of the things that it didn't solve it completely, but it made it kind of a little bit more available to us as a technique, is that there's not a lot of like true opacity in media, at least in the crafting media, but these pens like this, the acrylic paint pens, are something that answered that problem for me. So I'll do it. I don't do like coloring where one complementary color butts up against another color without merging into it. It's just really too hard to do that, except for with the you know, those markers like that. I can get like dots of color or something like that into it. Um, but it's not like a true, you know, I don't know, whatever rendition of that, you know, that type of scenario. And skies, you know, it's particular with the skies. I've always wanted to do things in the skies. Um, and there are just certain things due to the media of not being really opaque, where, you know, opacity is kind of called for. That makes it possible to do. You know, most of the things are kind of like even colored pencils too. I mean, we can get, you know, certain types of things like that, but to get it to harmonize, what I mean by that is, and it doesn't make any sense, but so I can do these types of things where everything is of its own kind of color scheme, and that, I mean, that kind of looks cool. Um, but where everything is like completely a different color scheme from one another, where it doesn't have some sort of um, commonality, be it a base layer color or something like that. I find it kind of, I don't know, what's the word, kind of disparate. It doesn't, things aren't merging as much as I'd want them to. On Distress ink, one corner of the lid will show the true color. Is that what it's doing? So are we talking like this right here? This would be like one corner. It would be like that, you know, version. Because those darker areas in here, you know, definitely are not the true version. What would it be here? Like this? It's not that. That's more like the antique linen or old paper. But see, this walnut stain right here, in my mind, I mean, it should be in between like that and that, because that's what walnut inks look like. So I just, for me, I don't know. I just kind of think, you know, when I'm using those, I just know that it's just, they're all like really light. They're almost like, they're just, now I don't have a lot, you know, a lot of the newer Distress inks, but I don't know, I have like 7 of them or something like that. But I tend to think that they're all like 30% and below in terms of value. Now, again, not the latest ones. I know they, just from a marketing standpoint, they have to release kind of their brighter tones and things like that under that Distress ink name. This is the dark brown right here. But yeah, the ones that I have, I don't know, I almost use them, even like that darker one, like that walnut stain, probably shouldn't be, you know, seen as like a base layer color, but it is light enough to be one. So it's, you know, which is, I don't know, I guess in terms of a process or something like that, it's probably good to know, because you can just know that you can dip into your Distress inks as your base layer color for, you know, a scenario like this. All right, but see that kind of that brown there seems like it's penetrating too, quite a bit. Let's see here. But that was a good question though, because that's one of those issues, scenarios that have, you know, it's always kind of plagued me in terms of the types of things that I want to be doing in here. Okay, this thing just kind of, this shadow would kind of be coming across here, but I left it a little bit lighter like that, so it goes a little bit darker, lighter, dark. But I think that looks pretty good right there, instead of just having this solid right across here. But that was just by accident. So I'll just kind of leave it like that. Okay, so a little bit more tone at the base here. This dark brown here, over the top of all these other colors here, is almost giving me a value that's close to black like that. I know it looks like that on screen too, but it just comes to show you kind of like the layered look, you know, type of thing. So let me show you what this brown looks like just on a white piece of paper. Okay, so this is just pure brown like that. Now I realize this is not glossy cardstock right here either, so that's not going to be, you know, you know, looking the same as on glossy anyway. But you can see what this brown, you know, the brown right here looks like this, but down here it's just, you know, it's more flat looking and kind of I don't know. The depth of it just, you know, it's just not the same. So again, all these other colors underneath here really lend themselves to, you know, much richer tone, even in these shaded areas like that. So you can see all the green in there still too. When I go like this, it's hard to see, but you can see all those other tones like underneath right in there, like that. Now you can get it, like I said, I went through a lot of colors here, and you can get it, you know, you can achieve that with, you know, less. But I just wanted to build this one up and see what it would look like. All right, so let's see. I think that is it with our coloring. You know, thank God. I'm just joking. All right, so let's do some additional detail work in here. I want to add a little bit more, or a lot more depth to those trees, and just working with, you know, like this thumb-sized, you know, applicator like that. That's not going to get into, you know, a lot of detailed areas within there. So let's go for a range of tones, and this is kind of going from light to dark like this. And alcohol inks to me can be blended on our paper here, and they also go back into solution, unlike, you know, this ink like this, unless I spray it with like water or something like that to get like water spots on there. It's, you know, this is kind of stuck right here, okay? Or it's established. You know, you can't really just change it. But with alcohol inks, it does stay fairly surface oriented. So I generally go with lighter tones, and I work through a transition into the darker tones, but then I'll go back with the lighter tones again on top of it, you know, just to kind of blend them together. So I'll just go light to dark, and then I'm using my lighter ones again in the darker areas as almost like a, what do I call it? The you know, the blender pen. All right, so right in here, go like that. And then as I go darker like this, and I'll kind of focus on the shadows a little bit more with this, but we still have those other darker ones to come. We're getting those large colored there. Hey, maybe I should do more of the yellow on there, huh? Okay, go like this. Kind of right in the shadow areas underneath the limbs. And you're saying, well, hey, how do you know where those are? It's just the darker areas on the stamp itself, so I can see it, you know, where the black impression of it is. All right, let me go back, you know, with like a yellow here. Let's go with this one. And I'll add that into those lighter areas and kind of blend into it a little bit. Like that. Okay. And you can use this down here too. I don't like these areas right around in here. See, like this area right around in here, where it's a little bit duller looking, you can add a little bit of brightness like into that area like that. Still kind of have a little bit of a transition area. See this area right here? Let's add this right over the top of it. And look at that kind of like glowing color right in there, okay? See this tree right here? Not to make everything look exactly the same or something like that, but just as an example of kind of brightening things up. Look at that kind of glow right in here. And this is just a transparent yellow right here, okay? But look at that glowing tone right there along that edge right here. Okay, let's see what this will look like. See that right there? That kind of, that little bit of glow right in there. So it's like kind of bringing the trees, you know, even more to life, you know, by additional layers. That, okay. You can see my streaks over here. Again, those will be unified with the use of a spray sealant or a spray fixative. Let's try the lime green in here too. Oh, that looks pretty good. All right, we have that. Oh, let's go along this water's edge too. These really get into those like hard to reach spots. And that cabin's looking really anemic as well, so let's see. Let's use like these tones right here. It's a little bit of an orangish tone. This one's a little bit of like an olive green. On the top right, okay, so that's, what? No wonder. Okay, so yeah, that's like a really light area right there. Okay, now, I'm looking at, so you're telling me that this antique linen, that's their color that they're talking about right there? That this one is? I mean, I really like this antique linen, but I mean, that's like white, you know, right there up in that upper right corner like that. That's good to know, though, Bonnie. I never heard about that. These are probably like shadow stamping inks or something like that. They're so light, you know, according to the cover, you know, the cover, like that. Okay, now here's the this is a lot darker than I thought it was. Right here, there's the night cabins. You know, how they're a little bit, you know, the windows are, you know, white or whatever, not filled in, so it looks like interior illumination. There's green. Let's go in the shadows right in here a little bit more. That. I think I'll leave the roof as is, just so it's nice and light, like it's, you know, overhead lighting on that. Let's do this too. Let's go a little bit darker around that water's edge. You learn something new on these live streams all the time. I never knew about that with the alcohol inks and the, what, you know, the color in that indexing there. All right, let's go in this water a little bit more too. That. Oh, it blends pretty good. I'm not a good like alcohol color blender. Well, that's not blending. It's blending okay though. Okay, this pen is really dry. No, okay, that's blending though. Hey, look at me, I'm blending. If I ever went to like one of those Copic workshops or something like that, I'd be taking like Copic markers like 001, like the survey class. You know, that's like a precursor to, you know, 101. I think I've mentioned this in my live streams before, but that Copictopia I taught there, but they just, I wasn't teaching Copic markers, which is largely a lot of the projects they were doing there. But she just thought, oh, she's gonna throw in something, a little bit different for them, just to give them a break from all Copic, classes. So I taught, but in that retreat, I think everyone brings in their own markers to use, and you know, they've been doing the retreat for many years, so people have had a chance to build up their Copic marker collection over time, unless they just got it all in one fell swoop. But I think it was like they were all required. I think it was over 100 different pens. And I asked the coordinator. I said, "All right, you're telling me that they use every single one of those colors?" And she goes, "Yeah, yeah, they are in the different projects. So it's like really specific. Okay, you're going to use your whatever, number whatever, gray or whatever, your your 10th version of whatever green, which I found rather impressive. All right, so there is that. That was a little bit of gray, by the way. So I was adding it right down here in the shadows like that. All right, look at that rich color scheme like so. Let's see. Right here, it looks like in Southern California, or in San Diego, we're in the low to mid 80s at most. So we have it pretty good here. And then at night times, it does cool off pretty good. To where it's like we had the windows open, but we're going to close it because it got too cold. They're saying 90s to 100 possible Sundays in Wisconsin. Wow. Hope for cooler by the lake, Lake Michigan. All right, let's see here. I wonder what I should do next here. Let's do... We have a couple choices here. I think let's add in the highlights first. Because if I add the light beams in here right now, the thing is I'm going to... And then when I start adding in highlights and everything like that, my hand is going to be going into the white pigmenting beams in here and getting, I'm going to be smudging everything all over the place. So let's do a couple different tones here. We won't go too crazy, but here we have kind of like a range of values right here. So if these represent highlights on here, we don't need to go all the way to the dark greens, okay? Because that'll be dark against dark, when we're using it in there, so no need for that. Let me throw a yellow in here, those larch trees. Bonnie has all the oxides. I don't have a single oxide. That's the one oxide that I haven't used before. Hello, Caroline. Hello, Janice. The Beginner Stampscapes Lab. Yeah, Janice, check out the things like the stamp-alongs too. So there's quick scenes and there's stamp-alongs. Check out the stamp-alongs too, because on the stamp-alongs I don't have like, we're not doing like a full-size scene or something like that. So the stamp-alongs, most of those ones are kind of quick versions of cards as well. But yeah, thanks so much for joining in and checking out the vids. And if you ever have any questions, drop me a note. And if you are on things like Facebook, join the group. If you it's not I'm not it's not my group, it's a peer-led group, but everyone's like, stampers in general are just so kind of helpful and everything like that if you want advice on things. And you can see so many different types of techniques. A lot of people use like different techniques. Some people, you'll see a lot of like techniques that I never use. There's a lot of like pan pastel works, which look absolutely incredible, that I should kind of practice with one of these days. Watercolors, I hardly ever do watercoloring at all. And there's different types of constructions. There's like those, I don't know what you call them, those pop-up cards or something like that. They're like the actual three-dimensional things. I do some things that are supposed to look three-dimensional, but they're not actually like 3D pop-up cards. But someone just sent me, I've seen the card before, but it's like one of those cards that you fold open like this, and you got this like center thing that kind of like pivots too. I don't what I forgot what those things are called, but you see really cool different applications in there. But yeah, check out all that type of stuff. Yeah, and like I said, if you have any questions, just drop me a note. I love talking stamping. I'm a stamping geek. Some people, when I get done with an email inquiry about something, I'm thinking, they probably regret asking me something, because I, like a half-page response with complete with links and everything like that. All right, so see these trees in here starting to kind of glisten and shimmer with the paint pens here. Let's bring in some of that detailing down here too. I'm going to add in some other brush in here too. This looks a little bit too kind of mono texture, okay? But see, this is like going to help out a lot right here. You notice how it really kind of stands out like weird when it's just on its own like that. But I'm adding this light into the light like this. I want it to shimmer a little bit too. I'm going to go a little bit more extreme with it though, because we're going to have a lot of foreground over the front of it, okay? So it's not just going to look like, a bunch of little, crawling dots or whatever. I don't know, whatever you'd call it in here. But see this right here? We have this kind of light coming through here. We're reiterating the light with a sharp, kind of crisp lighting like that. So I have a few more of these, or, there's more of a higher concentration of this light colored dot up here. And then as you move down here, there's a little bit less of it. I don't know, I kind of have a lot of, quite a bit of it everywhere. But now see this area right in here, the tree is casting its shadow this way. So we'll add some of this right in here too. But you want to have some of this kind of creeping into here a little bit, but maybe it's just, you put a little bit more of it out here. And then as you move in here, you just kind of, you space it out a little bit more in there. And here's what I was mentioning again. You have to put some color down here. You don't want just pure white, because you wouldn't be able to see things like these little details like this in here if there wasn't some color, okay? When we're establishing our lighting, you just don't come in with the super dark colors like in here. All right, so something like that. And again, this looks really weird down here, but I just know that I'm going to have a bunch of foreground in here going across that, okay? I'm talking about additional imagery. All right, so the light is coming from right here. You can see all my alcohol marks on there. That's going to be all merged in with the background. It'll look like this. But you see that glare like that, you can see my alcohol markings on there. But that's going to completely merge with the spray fixative over the whole thing like that. Okay, so lighting right here. So on the left side of the tree, we can have some lighting revealed like this. We're going to add in some other lighting too with the white after we add in our light beams into here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some light beams in here like this coming in here. Or, you know, what I'll do is I'll stamp some overhanging tree leaves in here, okay? And then I'll put a beam of light coming in front of it right in here. And then I'll layer another layer of leaves hanging down so that some of the leaves will be behind the beam and some of them will be in front of it. And we'll see how that goes. So we'll go for some additional, you know, a lot of extra depth in here. I guess it's subtle depth though, you know. I don't know, you know, someone that if you weren't watching this being done, I don't think someone's going to say, "Oh, wait a minute, wait, the light beam's in front of that leaf, but in back of that one." You know what I mean? No one's going to notice that. But I think it just adds to the richness, you know, even if it's like a, you know, something on a hitting people on kind of a little bit more of a subconscious level. Okay, so see this right here on some of these tree like this. You know, it's reiterating the light coming from in there. I know that's really, really distracting right there for some of you, but so you can see it like this. The blender pen a lot. I don't use too much of the blender pens. Sometimes I do. Most of the times I just kind of go back to my lightest color within a color scheme. But sometimes I've had to use that blender pen. It's like, I use my blender pen because my blender pen is like really super juicy. So sometimes when I've wanted to, especially lift color off that's been applied, I use my blender pen to lift a lot. Okay, now this is yellow right here. And let's add quite a bit of the yellow into the larch trees back here. So on the large trees, though, you know, that's like the color of, you know, the actual tree. There's some of them or whatever in a certain time of year. But where I use the yellow in other areas might just represent, you know, highlighting or something like that. All right, so like that. These trees are really kind of coming to life nicely. Okay, let's see. Let's add a little bit of a little sparkle down in this water. Yeah, could be just little sparkles of light in the water, or it could be fallen leaves down here too. Or needles, I don't know, whatever, larch needles, like that. Okay. All right. All right, it's around here somewhere. Where's my... Here we go. I'm going to add in some extra kind of a pre-foreground. What do you mean by pre-foreground? So we're going to have like some dark foreground right in here coming from within the scene. And then I'll have some in here too, okay? So let's add this. I really like this image right here, which is the winter brush. Just this nice bony little plant. Let's get a round. I was going to say a rounded. I don't know why this paper towel's like ripping in a kind of a straight form right here. Let's see. if they have reverse image, they do have reverse image stamps. Did someone reply to Mark there? But yeah, some people use that reverse image things for like a cabin down here, like that exact cabin reflecting like that. I don't know who. Yeah, who. Linda, you've used that reverse image recently, haven't you? I don't have one, but I've seen it used, and I've seen it used like I don't know, like a few times of like recently. I think Jeannie uses one too. I don't know. A lot of people. I've seen that on like the Facebook group for reflections. Yeah, yeah. You're getting what you're getting here, Janice, in these classes. What I ended up doing is I'm talking a lot of like I got a degree in illustration, so like the things with like analogous colors and stuff like that. That was my beginning design class, two-dimensional design, I think it was, which is a lot of things like color theory, stuff like that, which you'd think we'd learn in painting, but it wasn't. It was in the my design class. So my design class talking about analogous colors, complementary colors, stuff like that, color vibrations, things like that. I learned it from the guy who taught that class was at Long Beach State was this guy that was in charge of, he was the head of the industrial design department, which is pretty cool. You know, so they're doing, so you saw the industrial design department assignments, you know, from like their classes up in the hallways a lot of times. So it was like stuff like cars and things like that, or products, things like that. And they were using a lot of those design markers, those real xylene smelly markers. But I learned a lot from that class in terms of like color theory. We just only worked with this color packet of all these swatches of colors. Like they were actually painted little swatches, and we had to cut them out and put them into different designs and things like that. And that's where we learned about like repeating designs. But anyway, see that little texture in there like that? Okay. I think it's time for our light beams, or yeah, actually a couple things here. So, okay, so what we're doing here, we've worked a lot of lights and darks in here, okay? And that has to do with value. But from a textural standpoint, we have a lot of crisp things in here. Now, down here it looks kind of soft, but we're adding in these crisp little elements of, you know, paint pen dots and like these little foreground things. You know, the imagery is largely crisp, okay? But one of the things I think all forms of stamping can benefit from, and, you know, it could be just really, really minimal, but things people can extend their textural range of their cards. And it's like if you're stamping like a word stamp too, this would be a perfect spot for word stamps, you know, happy birthday or something like that. And if you do it in one color, it's monotone going across. Most people are stamping like word stamps in black. And that's, you know, or they can do it in color too, but I'm just using this as an example because everyone uses word stamps, okay? But not everyone does scenic stamping or something like that. But you can take a little bit of white pigment ink, if it's, you know, the word stamp is against a white card, and just dab off some of that word stamp so it looks like the top forms, all the letters are being illuminated like in light. Okay, so what you're doing is you're extending the value range of just a basic word stamp, happy birthday, you know. But then you're lighting some of it so it looks like more three-dimensional because light is hitting it from above, or you can bottom light it or whatever. But you're also expanding the textural range of it because where you apply this, it looks softer, okay? So, and this is where I was mentioning, kind of on my cloud, it didn't, you know, I got kind of a, you know, whatever, a funky kind of blend of those clouds right in here. But then you just tone in like this, and by the time you get to this, all's well again. It's nicely blended in like that. But look at that light coming through there now. It's nice and like super soft. And that softness right there is a really nice complement to all of these crisp shapes everywhere. Now it looks kind of strange like that because that's the only place where it's at right here, right now. So you just introduce that same textural quality to the other areas. So that's where we've retained some areas of light like that, okay? So you just kind of put this in that lighter area and just kind of, you know, work it into the objects or areas around it. But look at that. It looks like it's kind of like glowing a little bit more. And right there, you know, it's kind of illuminated, but it doesn't glow quite as much as it does from a little bit of white pigment ink. All right, so when you're using this white pigment ink, just make sure that you don't use too much of it, okay? So like Janice is, you know, like a real newbie. Okay, so I was mentioning this in all my other videos. Janice is still here, but anytime someone does this type of effect right here, they're taking a cotton ball like this, and their pads are going to be like way juicier than mine because I keep one pad kind of dry. I have two pads because I use this so much, though. You don't have to have two pads. I didn't use two pads for, you know, like 20 years until I kind of figured it out. But they go in here and it's like a big blob of white ink. Okay, but you want to just remove a lot of the ink, you know, before you stamp it off or press it into your back of your lid like this. Push some of that ink back in there, tap it off a few times, and then go on here to where it is barely applying any ink at all with each tap. But you just do like, you know, you can do 20 or 30 taps in like 5 seconds, and it'll apply a really nice light application of it. And that's where you get that kind of that glow coming from. Let's do the same thing down in our water. Like this. I don't apply it everywhere because it looks a little bit better if you kind of have it oscillate. Okay, so there's a little bit over here, but now let's leave it nothing right here, and let's put another like bit of it like right back in here, maybe. Like there's a little bit of light coming from behind there. Here, let's mask this off like this. I didn't retain, you know, too much white down there, but I'll just kind of introduce it in there. It didn't get like super dark either. So see like that? Isn't that fun with that? Now this cabin right here looks like it's enveloped in this illuminated light. You know what I mean? That kind of lends itself to kind of a whimsical, magical type of scenario when you're, you know, when you're glowing. Like that. That's what they do in the movies too. You always see any kind of forested area, there's always like a fog machine going in the background. Okay, so we got that lighting like that in there. I mean, that might be a little bit too much, but you know, who cares? All right, so this little area right in here where the light is coming through here, it already looks like light is coming through, but you can add in some of this fog like this. Now, what you've done is you're saying that there's things, this element in between us and this tree right here, which is like moisture in the air that is being illuminated. Okay, that's a little bit too much right there. So let's just erase that off like that. Let me get that again. And maybe not so much anymore, but when I first started doing this, I really removed more ink than I applied. Meaning when I was applying it, I'm kind of removing it and applying it, removing it, and getting kind of the amount that I want in here or applied to a certain scene area. I think, I don't know, maybe I just works a little bit more methodically now, but see, this is this light coming through here. It's a little bit blotchy, but again, I'm going to have these other elements in here, so I'll go a little bit more. Something is grabbing that ink right there a lot for some reason, right there for some reason. It might be, I don't know, it's grabbing onto that alcohol in there or something like that. I'm going to get rid of that with a little pen like that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to let that set for a little bit, and we'll see how this dries in here. And I like that look. Here, I'm going to come with a little bit more. Like right here. And again, it's just because I know I'm going to have some foreground in here, so it's going to obscure some of that we can see in there, so I want to put a little bit more ahead of time. Because when I put in the final touches, I can't really apply more without this being over the front of the, the very front imagery in here. All right, let's go with the light beams. This is going to be kind of the most, whatever, dynamic part of the scene in here. They always become kind of the star of the show. But, like I said, I'm going to add in a layer of, maybe not too many of these, but well, let's just see what it looks like, and then I can add more accordingly. I'm trying to think of what colors I want to do this in. I think I want to do it in a lighter color than black. I don't want to do it as dark as that bottle green, though, I don't think. Okay, well, after I do this one, I better heat set it probably, because this is going to be wet, and this is a water-based pigment ink that I use. So let's heat set just so I'm gonna be picking up some of this green anyway. I know when I do that light beam in there, if it's going across these leaves. So let's have them as dry as possible before we do that. Sometimes I forget to do these overhanging tree limbs or just my foreground imagery in multiple tones, and I just do it in all in black. But I really should do them in multiple tones more often than I do. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, going back to that reverse image stamp. Yeah, Bonnie. Okay, yeah, Bonnie got that comment there. You guys know more about that reverse image stamp than I do. Did anyone say what's the best reverse image stamp out there? Did someone mention a company or size of it too? I guess with the reverse image one, you want to get as large a one as you can, right? Because you can always do a small reverse image stamp on a large reverse image stamp, but you can't do a large, if it's, the reverse image stamp is too small. Or you can use those gel plates too, right? For those reverse image types of things. Okay, I'm making this go a little bit too long right there. Look at this right here where I stamped into that white. It absorbed the ink and it already looks kind of frosty like that. Okay, but see that, that overhanging tree limb right there? Here, I kind of had that one stamping for a while and it gave me a darker impression, so probably gave a little bit more time for the ink to penetrate the applied inks on here. Okay, let's see. My gel pads gel pad stick too much to my paper, right? I didn't see the first comment, I think. Or did I miss something there? What happened? Okay. Oh, good night, Bill. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So, the white pigment ink is really easy to do. So just remove more than you think you need to, okay? So most people, when they're applying this, they apply like 3 taps or something like that, or I don't know, they're going like this. Now, I mean, maybe they did take off too much ink, but most of the times you want that process to be where, you know, you're getting kind of the application, the final application that you want with like 20 taps or something like that. And you might think, oh, what, 20 taps, that's going to take me for, I mean, it takes a few seconds, you know. And if you apply too much, you just kind of wipe it off, especially if it's on like a glossy or a semi-gloss paper. With the matte papers, it might grab a little bit more. But again, you know, most people, when they do stuff, they expect to see the color that they're applying right away. But with this type of technique, what you want to apply a very thin layer of that white, because remember, it's supposed to look like mist and see-through or translucent. So you want kind of like a real powdery, very super light application of it. And that's where just kind of making it, extending the process of application by applying very little, you know, with each tap really comes into play. Okay, and let's see, I'm trying to... I almost feel like I'm embossing on here, waiting for that to kind of, you know, that puddle of ink to kind of change like that. All right, so if you just, or I don't know, whatever, if you joined in like, whatever, 10, 15 minutes after, you know, I started the scene, you might not have heard me, but this is going to be my source of light in here, and that's where I'm going to have these, what they call crepuscular rays, these light beams kind of originating from right in here. So I'm going to take a look at this, and I'm going to try to decide right now where I want these beams to be. I want some of those beams to be in back of this tree, but I think it's going to be really dynamic if I have it going in front of it too. I mean, it can go in front of this one, but in back of this one. So it's like weaving through the trees like that. But I think having one coming across this way will be good too. Maybe going up. Yeah, maybe going up like this. Okay, so something like this, I think. And another one like this. Let's see, let's have it going like across these trees right here, or in front of some and back of other ones maybe. And then, so I don't want to have a beam going across like that cabin right there, because that's like the star of the scene. So we can have one kind of coming low like this in here, okay? So what is that, 3? And I mean, we could do it like this too, maybe. Now, these don't all have to be like super light either. They could be, you know, really pretty subtle, okay? Which I think will be important. Maybe just in terms of the overall I don't know, whatever look harmony of this piece. Okay, let's see. I want to have a vanishing point that's consistent here. So, okay, there's this little tiny, tiny dot right here. You can't really see it, but it's roughly right here. It's just slightly darker, a little bit of ink off my cloud cumulus. I'm going to have that as the point of, or as the vanishing point for all of these beams right here. So, okay, where did I say? Let's go up this way, like this. Okay, and this one's going to be a kind of a small beam because it's going to be kind of represent kind of a background light beam like this. If you ever do these light beams too, they really become kind of the star of the scene over any type of imagery. Okay, now this one right here, it's not going to go in front of the tree trunk, so I need to get my bearings right here because it's kind of hard to tell, but my trunk is right here and it goes to about right here. So, and I'm not going to take my time to like mask off that tree or something like that. It's, you know, but just don't go into it too much. Okay, so I've gone right up to that point where the tree trunk is, and now see right over here. Now I have that overhanging tree limb right there, or those, you know, those branches. I'll take that ink into them a little bit. Now, what I like on these beams, what I learned to do after doing this, I don't know, a few times, is I vary it a little bit more. I don't go with a solid beam of white across here, okay? So I kind of taper it too, and maybe some of the areas of the beam, it's a little bit lighter like that, so it's a little bit lighter, darker, tapers off to nothing maybe. Or see, up on the top of the beam, I have some of that, but on the bottom of it, I don't. So I found that the varied beam kind of looks a little bit more realistic like that, okay? So it's a little bit lighter and it's a little bit duller, and then it kind of just tapers off there. You don't have to have it tapered off, but just, again, for variation. All right, then we'll go like this. I'll get my bearings as far as where that house is right there, and we'll go like, yeah, let's go roughly like right here. If you decide like a beam is too like narrow too or something, you can always widen it. But let's go like this. I'm going to have this one a little bit wider than the previous one. Okay. And see, these are a bunch of these trees in the background, okay? So just, you know, for a little bit of fun, again, here's that point of emanation here. And let me see, I can't tell. Okay, here it is right here. Going across here. I'm going to put some of this white in front of some of those darker trees, okay? Like this. And then there's this other tree right down here with all that paint pen. I'm going to try to make it look like the beam is behind that tree, but in front of the more distant ones, okay? So go like that. I mean, you know, don't do any masking, you know, but, you know, you don't need to get that, you know, exacting or something like that with it. But, and then here we go with the kind of a little bit of thicker application here and there. Like that. And then you see you have that beam kind of running through those trees. So it's kind of like, it's like you're weaving, you know, light, I guess, or something like that. Now, some of these beams are a little bit too, like, sharp right now, but we'll kind of blend them in a little bit more as we go. I think another one might be kind of cool, like right in here. So you kind of have to read it, you know. I don't come up with a lighting kind of a light beam, like, scheme, you know, just all in my head. I kind of have to just add one at a time and see how it's looking. Okay, now this one right here, like I said, I don't want like a solid beam going across my like cabin, but let's do this right here. I'll have it kind of up here, but I'm gonna favor the top side of this paper right here. And we'll do this type of thing. And again, just like real light applications of pigment ink. Okay, it's not like a big slathering. Now, if you want to go for something like really super dynamic and, really bold, beams, you could, just do a solid line across there if you want to, but, you can always just kind of look and see how it's coming. Okay, I think I need a little bit more. Something like that. So it's like in front of that cabin, so it's like, I don't know whether the light is shining on the cabin too. And let's do that one coming through here. Like about like this. We'll have it below. Well, let me see. Let's do this right here, I think, right across there. And since this is kind of a closer beam to us, I have it kind of wide here, like that. Okay. So see, we have a lot of that dark tree trunk right there. And then it goes light and then dark like that again. So let's see what we can do here. And in terms of making it look like it's kind of that beams a part of that, that whatever, that lighting scenario here, or the existing lighting that's already been established. Again, I'm favoring kind of the top half of this. I mean, I could add some below too, but see this right here going across this trunk, I kind of tapered it, and then it's lighter on that side, and then it's a little bit darker right here. I mean, I should have a little bit of it probably. But then here's this other trunk down here. And let's go like this. And again, I'm trying to taper that application of white a little bit. Okay, something like this. All right, that looks pretty decent. I'm not sure if just one beam coming across here. I don't know. They say that you should do things in like odd numbers too, so I kind of see like this beam coming across here already with the use of that pigment ink like that. So let's do I'm totally stuttering here. Because I'm not sure. Let's do this one right here. There's already kind of a line right there that's been established of light in a way. So let's do this right here. And it doesn't have to be like a physical beam going across the whole thing. It could be more of a suggested thing too, that you can end it like right up here too, and then just, people's, I don't know, minds will kind of fill in, the missing, whatever, length. Yeah, let's go a little bit more towards the top, I think, like that. Oh, I used a different, vanishing point. Eraser time. I just I did that on purpose just to show you that you can erase these beams if you wanted to. I went over here for some reason. It was right there. Okay, there we go. Here, let's see. Where was it? I think. Oh, it was that one. I was looking at that one right there. There's this little dot over there too. Okay, I got it. Which wouldn't mean, it wouldn't be so big of a deal, but it is kind of obvious when you don't use the same vanishing point. Uh, Here we go. Okay. I should double check here now. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, so there's our beams in there. Now, there's a lot of sharp kind of angles in here now. Okay, so I mean, you kind of want that in a way, but it's a little bit too much. So what I do is I soften up, especially the point of emanation right in here, and you taper that out a little bit like this. And if there's that much light coming through, chances are the source of light is going to be fairly bright. So you can come in here and you can see these leaves like here. Oops, that's like way too much. They're catching a little bit more of that light, or a lot more of it. There we go, like that. All right, and if you have these beams in here that are fairly strong, you can add in additional or a more strong kind of reflected, I guess that's fog light or something like that in here. In here too, if you want to kind of darken some of these beams, if it dries pretty fast, okay, but you can go in a little bit more and remove some of that application if you want to. Think about like that. Okay. I think this brilliance pigment ink is a little bit reflective. So you're seeing it like that, but it really looks like that. See where that's like a lot more subtle like that? Because this has a lot of glare in it from my studio lights. So this is what we're looking at right here. This is what I can see in front of me. But at this angle right here, it looks more like silvery like that and kind of extreme. All right, so I think those beams are looking pretty decent. So let's go in and add those nice finishing touches into here. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking about. I'm wondering if I could do, I wonder if I should do like my darkest of imagery with the hybrid black ink. The Brilliance black would be good too. I'm contemplating because I'm not sure if this Marvy black on top of that, you know what I mean? That green, when I stamped it over that white, the white just totally permeated the green, making it look lighter. So I think it may be going with a little bit of a thicker type of ink, the hybrid ink, which is part dye and pigment, or this one right here is just the black version of the pigment ink, and it's water based and it'll dry on here. Versifying Clear, I'm not sure if it'll dry on there. I think it will, but I think for me might take overnight or a day or two. Let's go with let's go with the hybrid here. Your stays on ink would work fine too, I think. The pigment inks are a little bit thicker though, so yeah. Okay, so here we go. I found I got a better show of pigment ink if I tap and not pound it. Yeah. If you pound, what you might be doing is you might be absorbing, right, that ink back into the applicator, where a lighter tap is going to transfer and build up that ink on there. Do you use multicolor or ombre ink pads? Was that a... Is that, you mean Umber, Caroline? Yeah, what's the OMBRE pads? Or is that a brand of pads or something? All right, let me see if I have enough ink on this pad right here. Okay, so I'm not trying to just stamp exactly over my green ones. I want to kind of offset it from those green impressions there. And we'll see how this applies on here. Yeah, that light beam was that was messing me up too, Mark. I thought, what the heck is going on? I used the wrong dot. If it was kind of an an offset beam, then it suddenly, instead of coming from a single light source, we've thus changed it into like a UFO from maybe Close Encounters or E.T. Oh, that ink works perfect on there. Look how dark, real glary, like that is right there. Okay. So knowing that, then Mark, an inside joke to myself is I'm going to like sabotage like each scene with some little quirk, that'll irk you. Thinking, well, hey, that thing's like I'll put it like right towards the beginning of a scene. And then I'll correct it later. I'll say, just kidding, Mark. All right. So see those nice, I don't know, whatever, layered impressions. We need a little bit more right in here. Leaf structure. So it's giving the scene some added depth. It's adding contrast from both a value standpoint, dark, but it's also adding something that's very crisp against, those really soft light beams. So you can say that we've done very crisp imagery, when we're stamping out our imagery initially, our composition. And then we do all that coloring and everything like that. Sometimes the colors themselves add a bit of softness to it, Sometimes it looks, darn right muddled, with all the colors that I add into some of my scenes. And then you can finish up. I mean, you can finish up with whatever you want, with whatever element you want. But this is kind of like sandwiching in soft. So you're going from like crisp to soft to crisp again, just like you can do colors. You can work from light colors into darker colors, but then you add in light after it, with the paint pens or something like that. All right, so there's our top portion. Let me get that glare out of there so you can see it a little bit easier like that. All right. Now we'll add that around this bottom portion as well. Let's do something here. Since we did multi-valued colors on the top, let's do the same thing on the bottom. I'll use the Reed's large here, but wood mounted or whatever, stamp mounted rubber form, like this. Okay, I'm just stamping this in dye-based ink right here, okay? And then we'll hit a larger version. Now, if all you have is one version of it, just do it in, you know, multiple values or tones, which is what I usually did. These art foamies haven't been around for very long, relatively speaking. Okay, and then we're going to do this one in the nice thicker hybrid ink. I'm starting to lose space on my desk to work here. It might be time for a cleaning, a tidying up. All right, let's hold this one down for a little bit longer here. Okay. I won't do as many impressions of this one as I did with that, the green. Okay, I'm going like this, and I'm going to bend this one over like that. So it's like, you know, going into the scene and maybe into the light. And the opposite angling, like this, on the left side. All right, there we go, like that. Okay, now that black is probably looking a little bit darker than probably what it'll look like when it's dried. But again, I'll spray seal it, and that'll... I don't know if it'll look as dark as it does when it's wet, though, and freshly stamped like that, okay? All right, so a couple little final things that I'm going to do in here to add in a little bit of added, whatever, textural kind of interest is going back to the paint pen here. I gotta be really careful right here because everything's like super wet in terms of these black impressions here, but yeah, that is not, that white is not that dark. It's like that dark, okay? See that translucency right in here that I put across like that? That's what it looks like in person, okay? This is like really picking up a lot of that, you know, that glare on there. And again, the Brilliance has that kind of luminescent or whatever, iridescence, or that little bit of, it has a little bit of shimmer to it, you know. Okay, so I'm adding in a little bit of extra highlighting on the side of the tree right around where those beams are kind of going. And it's supposed to be in back of the tree, but this beam might have been interesting to go across here a little bit too. So it's like going in back of that tree, but in front of this one. But that'd be too much, I think. All right, wet scene, beware. Okay, my fingers are completely covered with ink here. Touching some areas around here is getting it a little bit... I'm like touching areas. Normally I'm leaving like dark fingerprints on like lighter paper. And I'm leaving like light fingerprints on dark areas in here. Okay, but I wanted to bring in some of these little glowing little orby looking things into here, into some of these darker areas like this. I'm going to do it with my beige-ish colored pen. That. A little bit of size variation. All right. Let's see. That, and let's see if I have a Q-tip here. I need to resupply my Q-tips. I keep forgetting to bring some of those down here. All right, Q-tip, nice frayed end, nice and soft, 100% cotton, cotton swab. And I have tried with the acrylic ones in both the cotton balls and the cotton swabs, and they just don't work. They're really clunky, even though from the touch, they can often seem kind of like softer than even the cotton balls. They just don't absorb moisture. They wick moisture away. So I just don't get a really good application of ink with the synthetics. Okay, so really light touch with this, just to make some of these little critters glow. I don't know if they're fireflies or if they're supposed to be little woodland what do they, I forget what they call them in that movie Brave. But you see these little glowing things in a lot of like Disney movies, hovering around. They were in the movie Maleficent. It just, I don't know, it brings like some other type of little visual interest into the piece. If I'm doing a bayou scene, it reminds me of the opening area in Pirates of the Caribbean on that ride. Those little cool little fireflies in that, when you're loading, or just taking off from the loading area. All right. Oh, yeah. I forgot I put a couple like back in here too. And you can just do it like a really light tap, so it looks more distant. This type of thing that works for stars as well in your pieces. If you do a couple of them that are kind of glowing like that, it makes it real fun looking and, I don't know, whatever, whimsical. All right, so get this funky thing out of here. Light beams, the Emerald Forest. Okay, let's see. There's more glow than before. It keeps glowing and glowing even more and more, huh? With each little step that we can do in there. Okay, now this is going to get more saturated looking too, believe it or not, when we spray seal this too. Now this one, I don't know, it already has a pretty decent kind of glow to it and intensity in those, especially the real super layered areas in there. But it'll bring out the saturation a little bit more. Because remember, I heat set this too, and it dulled out some of these areas right here. It didn't fade it out though; it just dried it. So the spray sealing tends to bring out a little bit more of that look of a freshly colored scene. You know, when the inks are still a little bit damp. But one of the things it also does is it kind of subdues a little bit your white pigment ink applications on there. So the beams will kind of set into the scene a little bit more because you're bringing out the saturation of the background a little bit more. But what it also does is it subdues a little bit of the that translucency of the white. Now, I don't want it to disappear, so I'm going to be careful not to overspray it, where it's like, oh my God, where'd all my beams go? You know, which is possible at times if you, especially if you spray it with a thicker type of spray. But one of the thing that I'm using these days more than anything is the Krylon workable fixative. So it really sprays and it really kind of dries really fast on the surface. So you don't get that time for having some sort of acrylic sealant on there, taking a few seconds to dry. And in that time, it puts something back into solution or something like that, or whatever it's doing to make it look a little bit more, in this case, the pigment ink look more transparent, or it moves it towards transparency. But it just unifies things and it unifies and beautifies at the same time. So I'd always recommend hitting things with a spray sealant, especially if you have a decent number of layers in there. If you're using a lot of alcohol inks, though, be careful about that. With the thicker spray fixatives, or the thicker acrylic sealants, okay? Again, this really good thing to use is the fixative because it just dries so fast, so you might not even run into that type of thing like that, so where it's a problem. Okay, let's see. Kaleidocolor ink pads are multicolored. The Kaleidocolor... Those are the pigment ink pads, right? The Clear Snap ones, Caroline? See, I don't even remember that because I never... I don't... I'm trying to think if I had some of those multicolored um, pads. I'm looking at my shelf right now. If you're talking about the Clear Snap ones, I know what you're talking about. But those ones were the Kaleidocolors, right? Were they pigment ink ones? Um, I don't know now. Yeah, I haven't used those ones though. Um, or like the petals, those ones. I used a lot of Clear Snap pigment inks. Okay. Oh no, these ones are the chalk petal point ones. See, I don't think I ever use this. I was just about to be astounded if it was um, wet. I think these are dry. Yeah, these are completely dry. These are the chalk ones. I don't know if it was if, if if that's who Kaleidocolor, if that's what the Kaleidocolor brand was, the Clear Snap pigment ink ones. But now I'm starting to wonder. I don't know. I haven't heard these these products in a long time, so I'm starting to forget. I have a bad memory anyway. Oh, Hero Arts. I'll take a look at that, Caroline, and see if I've seen those pads before. I'm not. What type of inks are those ombre ink pads? What is it? A pigment or is it a dye or something like that? I'm glad you like the green, Linda. Yeah, that's one of my favorite color schemes right here. So I use the same color scheme right here for a lot of my Northern Light types of scenarios. And again, it does And in the Northern Lights too, it has that brownish tinge in there usually. It might not be able to see it at all like you can in here, the brown. But do you see that little brownish tinge right down in here? And like I said, and certainly in there. But again, I use that in that Northern Light scenario. It makes it a little bit more rich. Okay, so that's my tip for natural green colored objects. Okay, so grasses in terms of an area, not like reed grasses like this, but like a grassy meadow or something like that. Use your greens or something like that, but also blend in a little bit of your tan colors. I just think that it makes it look a little bit, it's still rich and everything like that, and it still looks green, but it's a little bit more grounded and earthy looking. And again, it's rich because you're adding in that kind of orangish tone in there of the brown. And I think it just looks more full that way, potentially. So if you're doing like a pine tree too, you can blend in a little bit of brown in there. And again, you don't have to see the brown. That you don't want to. That's not what you're going for, but you're just going for that richness. And I find that it just makes it glow a little bit more. See, it's like really, I think it's really helping right along here to have that on the inside up there. That's that brown that's revealed a little bit more. In the center one, you really can't see anything. Now, I don't necessarily like plan for it. Like I needed that degree of brown right there. That's just kind of how it happened. But I didn't cover it up with the darker greens, once that was kind of already established. I mean, it wouldn't be bad to have a little bit of a tinge of that in the background there too. That might look interesting, but I don't know. Sometimes it just kind of, you're blending these colors. And if I was to do this again, it would probably come out a little bit different. If I was doing them one by one like that. There might be more brown in the trees next time or something like that. So, but if so what I'm getting at here is, when you're blending these like seemingly, you know, colors that don't seem like they're necessarily related in terms of like blending them over one another like that. Just see what's kind of developing, and if you like certain things, then just try to retain it through the other colors that you're going to be applying over the top of it, like that. Just read it as you're going along, and you might have to change kind of or tweak your kind of your preconceived plans too, and just go with with whatever has been developing there. And it could go in a different direction too. But oftentimes it's like instead of a straight line, maybe it's going over here. You've altered it by whatever 3 degrees. It doesn't mean you're doing a 180 or something like that. But yeah, or if things get a little bit too muddled, you add in those crisp elements next to it, whatever. Like this area in here got really dark, and here, it's rich and everything like that, but you can add a little bit of light back into it, with little things like this. You can add highlights in there or whatever. And just, you know what I mean? So things might not look kind of the way you maybe thought they might. Okay. So over time, doing things this way, I probably, sometimes in years past over time, I just like, I have a plan, a general plan and kind of an idea, but it's like, how you get there is just it's a little bit more up in the air, than maybe how I used to think about things. Especially, it especially was in play when I achieved something that I really liked. And then later on, it's like, oh, I want to do that again. But it's like not coming out that way, you know what I mean? So it's like, I realize that, there's a lot of variables and stuff like that. Maybe next time I used less brown, or I used a thicker application of a base coat layer, so the other colors are going on lighter because they're not going to absorb that as fast. So, you know what I mean? You just got to roll with it. Let's see. Emerald Forest has many green, pretty green colors. Oh, that would be so on this card right here, if I was doing a card, I have this quote stamp. What is it? The something is green. Paint it green with trees, I think it is. That'd be a perfect quote on the top, whatever, outside of this card or whatever. Like that. They have a rounded shape at the end. That is the Kaleidocolor ink pad then, right? I gotta take a look at. I know that name like super well, but I just can't picture it right here. Sukaneko dye pads. Ombre maybe is a dye. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had any of the Hero Arts pads before. I did take a look at them briefly because I was going to go do potentially a workshop at that the Great Yosemite, I think, stamp retreat or something like that. But in all these years, I haven't been doing the in-person classes, so I didn't have like a set of pads for everyone. So we were talking about maybe coordinating with Hero Arts or something like that, and they would whatever donate the pads needed for the class. But I did take a look at those briefly, but I just don't remember the colors that they had. But as long as they had kind of like, I don't know, like 13 or 14 kind of colors with a range of values, then I'd be able to teach something like this with it. So I came close to having a lot of those. But what I would do is I would give them back to the convention coordinator, I mean, the retreat coordinator, and she would have just, I don't know, offered to sell them to the class participants at the end of the class or something like that, or whatever, and given that money back to, I don't know, I don't know, given back to Hero Arts or something like that. Not to go off on like a wild tangent here, but yeah, I just haven't, checked out the Hero Arts ones before. Always used Marvies just because we were using those like in the 80s, in terms of their inks. And then, I don't know, places like Ranger, seemed a lot more kind of, I don't know, in terms of their development of different colors and things like that. They just became the other one that I went with. And I have a bunch of mementos too, but there's so many other brands out there. And I really like the looks of a lot of them, all the different ink pads out there. The only ink pads, I've mentioned this before, that I'm really not into, just for my use though, are those really small ones, the little cubes. I just find, unless you're just stamping like really small images, I find those cubes to be not very functional or practical. Just because, I mean, a small thing like that is going to dry out a lot faster too. But I can see using it, if you want to just get a sampling of some inks, and then if you use it all the time, you get the larger one. But yeah. Oh, Sukaneko makes Kaleidocolor? They're, what? Dye-based. So they have Kaleidocolor. So Sukaneko is also the Memento ink pad. So they have a couple different ink pad lines then, huh? Or dye-based ink pad lines. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought Color Box had the Kaleidocolor too. I thought that's what the Kaleidocolors were. Now I'm not sure at all. Okay, Laura says, Hero Art says ombre in reactive dye and metallic pigments. What is that? So it means that they're water soluble, right? When they talk about reactive, just like the, what were those other pads that I mentioned? I didn't have any of the oxides. So those are supposed to be reactive too, right? So I take it that just about any dye-based inks are kind of reactive because you can splash water on them and they're going to go back into solution. But maybe they're more of like a watercolor type of application where they're physically made not just to be dissolved, but, to be, put back into solution with the same whatever binder. In this case, it's water. But the metallic pigment inks, is that, if Hero Arts has like some sort of reactive metallic, I might have to look into that, because then we're talking about something that might be right up my alley. If we can do something with like an application of metallic pigment and then go back into it and manipulate it. That'd be kind of interesting. Of course, the Brilliance pads are supposed to be kind of like that as well, because they're water-based. But I don't know. Once the Brilliance dries, it's pretty. They're semi-set except for on certain types of surfaces. So yeah, huh. Yeah, it's always yeah, it's Caroline. It's always multimedia for me with most of my pieces that are kind of like this. You know, we want to use the different type of media for what they're really great at. So dye-based inks, you know, that you can get a lot of coverage with them. They're transparent, so you can layer them. But unlike transparent alcohol inks, which you can't really layer too much, because if you go with one ink over the other one, it's putting the other one back into solution, unless you spray seal, then layer that way. But the dye-based inks, you can really layer on and do it quickly. But, you know, unless we have, you know, the equivalent dye-based ink pens, which we used to use a lot of, you know, they're not great for, you know, pad isn't great for doing like detailed work in certain areas. So that's where the, I like the alcohol inks for that, because it's not putting back into solution or picking up and smearing any of the other inks, water-based inks that are already applied. So I like doing that for the detailing areas. I could work around my windows in here with a, you know, a pen with no problem, you know, a brush tip or a sharp, you know, extra fine tip like that. Those are your transparent colors. And then we're kind of working with translucency and thicker inks with the pigment inks, like the Brilliance White in this case in there. And another thing that's fairly opaque and thicker than alcohol inks and dye-based inks are acrylic paint. So that's perfect for all these little details in here and the little sparkle. I should go in here with a little bit more white. I'm not going to do that in here and torture you even more with like one dot at a time applications in here. But I might end in like a little bit of extra highlighting in here with white. And plus I have to wait for this to dry too. I got to be able to, you know, kind of working around all this stuff with the, you know, without, actually that black in there is, it's almost dry. Well, there's something to be said for, you know, whatever, super hot days, I guess. This ink is really drying on me really fast right here. But yeah, it's kind of working thin to thicker in here too with the different media. So thinner alcohol and dye-based inks, thicker pigment inks, you know, which includes the hybrid, I guess, and the acrylic paint on there. So thin to thick. And a lot of lights to darks and stuff like that. But yeah, just use whatever. A lot of you guys already have all this stuff too, so it's just a matter of busting it out. If you don't have the acrylic paint pens, if you have some like a white gel pen that still works, you know, you can use that in there too. If you don't have Brilliance white pigment ink, I didn't use the Brilliance one for years. I used the, speaking of Clear Snap, I used the Clear Snap one for years. And another thing, speaking of Hero Arts, okay, so with the Hero Arts, I just didn't have their dye-based inks, but I did have that unicorn white that you can use for these beams in here. And that one was good. So I got this one because this one was, for a while, was known as the most opaque of the white pigment ink pads and better than the Clear Snap Color Box White. Frost White was it, I think. So I bought this one. And I used this one for a long time. So if you have anything from Hero Arts, or if you have a Stampin' Up! White pigment ink pad or something like that, just use that. And that should work good for you. All right, but spray seal it too, probably, if you do end up using, you know, the white pigment ink on there. It's set pretty well, you know. I guess I don't have to spray seal it, but again, it'll unify things a little bit more. Thanks, Sharita. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the Emerald Forest here. So here's a quick flip through here. We have the That one right there. This one right here needs to get spray sealed. It'll look a little bit better in terms of the color saturation and all that kind of crazy texturing on there. The wood grain one was a lot of fun last night. The blue pre-folded matte, cardstock one right here. As I look at that one, I don't know, that one's still one of my favorite. And this one I haven't. Did I spray seal this one? I don't know if I spray sealed this one either. But here's just I don't know, whatever sunset or sunrise type of scenario right here. But that's the latest one. I don't know. I don't know what my favorite one is. Sometimes it's my favorite one is usually the one that I just worked on the most recent. I do like that blue one, that first one though, a lot too. So, but then again, like I said, green's not my favorite color, just in general. But when it comes to this technique right here, I don't know, it's like right up there with my favorite color scheme. I love the look of like in movies like that. When it's like a Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that, when they've dipped into like a bowl of emerald, gems or something like that. I've always liked that color scheme in there. So that's what I'm always kind of going for when I'm using this color scheme right here. I want it to look like this, this emerald with like light coming out of it or something like that, emanating from it. So, yeah. 3 or 4 greens at least if you try this one out. And if you try anything out with any of these techniques, and if anything, kind of you run into a little roadblock or something like that, always think about sending me an email and we'll just work you through it instantly. I'll usually know what's going on and just how to tweak it and how to get it on the right track. All right, folks. Thanks, Bonnie. Have a great rest of evening. All right, folks. Stay cool and hydrated out there. Go to this lake this cabin right here. This is like a nice mellow 72 right now. I put food in the fridge for you with a lot of cool beverages and things like that. And there's a kayak on the side for you to go out on the lake in the evening. And there's no mosquitoes at this particular lake as well, so you're all set. Good night, everyone.